Since I first learned about the 1.1 update, I've been saving my Primo Gems to see if I could have a good chance of pulling the new character Childy. And I didn't realize until I was at the banner, because I've never summoned that much before, it had been a while, that I forgot that it's 160 Primo Gems for each pull and not 100. And I know that you're guaranteed a 5-star after 90 pulls. So I thought with 7,000 Primo Gems saved up, I was in a really good position because I had the pity counter carried over from a previous summon for Venti and felt that I was pretty confident I wouldn't have to burn through all of my gems to pull a new 5-star. I've got to be honest, the way that they have the system in this game is like a love-hate thing for me, because you are basically guaranteed any character that you want if you put in 180 pulls on their uprate banner. In other gacha games, that doesn't happen with a guarantee of that particular character, because generally speaking, you'll have several characters on each banner and then filler characters, and you'll have a chance of pulling the filler or the featured. And if you're looking for one particular unit alone, it's super hard to just pull that one particular unit. Specifically, my experience with Bleach Brave Souls. But the thing about this game is that you've also got the constellation system. And the constellation system is just, man, it's absurdly hard and expensive to get 5 dupes of a 5-star to max out their constellations. And there's no other way to build those constellations. I understand why they put it in, because it makes it a lot more enticing for when you do get dupes rather than it being useless. But the fundamental changes to gameplay mechanics for certain characters with those constellation unlocks, and that's my 5-star pull of 2 5-star pulls in the video that at the time, I was kind of disappointed.
Damn.
But after I learned more about the character and had some experience with watching Gene before, I actually really love that pull. I'm really happy with that. As of right now, the constellation unlocks aren't a huge deal, because you can get by with any part of the endgame content without having a maxed out constellation character. And you can max out constellations on 4-star characters and carry that through your entire gameplay. But there is something when you pull certain characters that you really are interested in, to be able to invest into, maxing out their abilities. And the constellations in this game just have a huge impact, more so than getting dupes in other games that might just increase special attack damage or something that's very minuscule and not going to be like very game altering for that particular unit. The other thing about this game I'm also curious about for the long term is if there is going to be a power creep or not. How long are each individual characters going to be viable, and how much more powerful or changing are the characters going to be in later updates? Because it's a really common thing in gacha games that every few months some of those older characters can basically become obsolete, because the new characters are so much higher powered, have better range and attacks and special abilities and etc. But seeing the gameplay style and the way things work with Genshin Impact, I don't think that's going to be the case as much. I'm also kind of theorizing that they'll plan on doing costume changes for characters, because if you see the coat hanger icon and section where you can change the gliders, it almost seems like it was designed to change outfits for characters that they release as well. And you see that with characters that are released with 7 Deadly Sins and how they have the alternate costumes, which will be a pretty cool thing to implement. I gotta tell you guys though, the rates in this game, aside from the guaranteed pull, it's still really cheap on their end. The fact that they have the constellations and a 0.7 pull rate, like, I can't even pull for weapons because
it's completely just not worth it when I have a hard enough time just saving up just to pull one copy of a single character. And these characters can be so helpful and game changing for completing certain content and just for the sake of me liking to collect certain things with the characters. And the other thing that some people don't realize, but in the gacha gaming industry, they were forced to put pity timers on these polls for these banners and such because they could get sued and have lawsuits over the fact that it's a gambling entity, all the while labeling it as a video game. I think overall this game has a lot of potential, more potential than any other gacha game that was ever released, and especially because it's become a cross-platform video game, they have a lot more encouragement and incentive to change their strategies and hopefully put it in a direction that's going to be more morally sound and fair to players, that they don't have to be held back by the limitations that a gacha gaming label puts on certain games. And I think the best example of a really fair made gacha game would be Seven Deadly Sins, because you collect these coins to purchase other SSR characters, which is the equivalent of a 5-star in this game, from pulling units on banners, and then these certain characters become available to buy with coins in shop after you gain enough of the coins and that certain character banner leaves. It might come in the shop for like a week or two. And so throughout your time playing that game, you'll always have a chance to collect any single 5-star that you want. And through playing enough time in the game, you'll collect enough resources to do enough pulls where you do get these, 5-star units. And it's a lot higher of a pull rate as well. So between Seven Deadly Sins and another game, which was Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, they both have a really fair system with their gachas. But at the end of the day, it is still a gacha game. And it costs a lot of money to invest into pulling on certain banners and characters and resources if you're going to go that route for a video game, which in the long term, you could end up spending far more on the gacha game than you would purchasing a game outright in the beginning, even with all the added DLC, depending on how long you play the gacha game and how much you invest. If you throw $20 at it here or there every few months and you play for a year or two, that's going to be a good amount of money invested into the game after some time. I mention this stuff a lot because I just want people to be very careful, because the way that gambling works and the intermittent reinforcement of these systems, where you're pushing the button and you're pushing the button and you're hoping for that really good pull and you don't get it, and then 1 out of every 100 times you do get that rush of dopamine from getting that thing that you wanted, exactly what you want, right? And it feels good for a short bit of time. You're happy and stoked about it. But then the regret and guilt and shame come after you realize if you spend a lot of money into it, what you're getting for what you invested your money that you can't really get back. You know what I mean? If I were to give anybody advice from my time in these gacha games, it would be to only spend what you can afford and find reasonable for purely entertainment purposes, that you will not get any sense of money, that you will not get anything back for. In Genshin Impact, I think the best investment is the daily wishes. It's only $5 a month, and most people can afford that. Or if they have a hard time affording that, they can even find a way to make some extra money on the side just to pay the $5 extra to get the extra 90 Primo Gems. Those gems, on top of just spending on only what you really want and being able to save up resources for a long time to know in ahead which banners you want to pull on, and then saving specifically for them, you'll put yourself in a really good spot, and eventually, over time, you'll get most of the things that you want. It will just be at a lot slower of a pace than somebody who is actively paying a lot higher than that. Myself personally, I put out a few extra bucks to pay for some crystals to see if I could have a better chance of pulling Tartaglia, and I got potentially very lucky. And I bought way more than I needed, so I guess I'll just end up saving them for the next banner. But yeah,
Wow.
pretty stoked with everything that I got.
Wow.
But keep in mind, this did cost me a lot of gems and some